Hi everyone. Today I'm going to be doing the Knowledge series, the second part of it. And first of all, I want to say thank you very much to everyone that has been asking all these questions. They are very important. They definitely feed the information through and gives us more perspective on what we're looking at in terms of the sacred knowledge that is within us. And I appreciate your commentary on the videos as you are looking at things with a much broader perspective and your awareness. The first thing I want to say before I jump in is that this morning, as I'm busy making this video, and before I say this as well, as I'm interrupting myself, is this will be a lengthy video, again, just like the previous one. I cannot break the knowledge up when the information is specific related to the body of work in this particular video itself. So it's better to listen to it and then go back into it. And as I've said, download it, because once you've got it, you will have to refer to it a few times. And perhaps at some point, much later, I think I would then be able to put it into a book form much later, but I don't know if there's time allocated for me for that specific purpose. It is written, the questions and the answers are written on my website. If you lose track with the video is just to touch broadly on all the parts, just so that we have an understanding overall of the material itself. So now, what I want to say, as I was interrupting myself, is the fact that obviously this material is quite challenging to some people. It is also perhaps threatening some people, threatening your ability to what you perhaps have always thought of as now dismantled in a way. The information is very logical, as well as very much related to what is within the Great Spirit format. So therefore, the information that comes out here is as clear as it comes to me when I answer the questions. Just that I've been in it for a long time, for many lifetimes, so it is to me a first knowledge, always. And based on that, clearly those who feel threatened by the information in itself, and I'm not necessarily referring to you who is listening to this, but I'm talking about those who are psychically sensing that the energy is changing, are feeling threatened, is creating a psychic transference, which I am picking up this morning right now as I'm speaking to you, and that is interpreted as a psychic attack. It is a psychic attack because it is causing me discomfort. And so if transference in understanding information, knowing that your negative order that you're trying to implement into the third creation, as we are going towards that, I'd say you have a lot to lose, and you may have to go back to your first original existence as who you have been before. And this information that I've just given is to those who are watching my videos from the shadows and who are never present in the channel itself, but who are observing so that they can keep track on what their enemy is doing, which is us, if we threaten their process in what they're doing. So I'm leaving that with all of you, our Great Spirit family that is listening to the information and connecting with it, so that you may be aware that these type of things do exist. And if you need to understand how to protect yourself on a psychic level, then please look at the rest of the videos as well on this channel, as the information explains to you what a psychic attack is, basically, and how to protect yourself from that. So the knowledge part 2, I have the questions in front of me, so I will be reading the questions and I will be reading my own answers because it's a lot of stuff to remember. And as I come to certain points, like the previous video, I will explain or expand a little bit on that so that we have the idea of it. Okay, so again, as I've said to you before, something else that's very important is to please take note that you all go to Odyssey. I've had my channel on BitChute, but BitChute to me is clumsy. I cannot work with BitChute. Odyssey is there. Please subscribe. There is an exact cloned version of my videos on Odyssey. Please subscribe. Should the information on this channel get taken down, because I can see that we're going towards some very stronger, serious, more deepened information, which some people don't like. So please feel free to join there. Also, as you can see on my channel itself, in the first part, when you look, there is a Telegram service, Telegram app. So have a look at the links that are on there, and please subscribe there as well if you don't want to lose track of the information, and because the material is very sensitive, specifically because there has been a lot of work done to try and squash this particular information. It is threatening the forces that are trying to change the reality into the way that they would want their own reality to exist in, as you know. I don't need to explain anything anymore in that. So this time I don't think I'll be rushing through it like I did the last time. I'll just be going through it with you at a slower speed. Okay, so your question that you had asked was, can you explain where does the Nephilim giants and the fallen angels come from? That's a very good question. Basically, it's important for you to understand that anything that's related to angels or the archetypal references as Nephilim or fallen angels or such, the word Nephilim is related to a previous religion, as it's been before. I think it was Persian, and I've written here that it is definitely Persian and Mithraic, which means it's very, very old. It's also coming from the Sumerian beliefs as well. And again, it is tied to the solar cult belief system. And as I've said before, that which is in the solar cult or the solar pillar, you have to envision in your mind a Freemasonry tracing board so that you can see what we're looking at. And there's a reason why I'm using the tracing board, is because the information that we have within ourselves is understood or interpreted through the Masonic fraternities, as well as all the other fraternities that there are too many to mention. And so when the initial information came out as the first inspiration, it was understood and interpreted as observing a tracing board, which makes sense because the first time that I have explored this information was where I have seen myself actively engaging to try and overcome the chess pieces on the chessboard. So we are essentially, the system is based on a chessboard type of reference in your mind. Imagine that, if you will. So that which is solar cult, which is the left side, I was explaining to you is how I see it. On the left side is the solar pillar. In the middle is the star pillar, which they're trying to damage or destroy, the third path. And on the right side, the furthest side, is the lunar pillar. And for you to understand the difference between the two, solar Pillar means that which is outside, visible for you to see. Organizations, companies, global companies, agendas, driving things so that people can see it. Media as their element to project their information out there. And the lunar to be that which is hidden or in the quiet, in the shadows, or underground. And these are things for you to look at. At some point, I will be discussing the symbology related to how these things operate, including all the things that we will be seeing now that we know the knowledge itself, or the theory itself. Let me put it that way. It's not really even a theory, but if you follow that this is the knowledge in the wisdom itself, once the wisdom is instated within or reawakened within yourself, only then, after you understand how things operate, will you then be able to see how all of these pieces fit together and what they are driving at. And when you watch certain things, or you see certain things, or you observe in people's behavior, whether you can see whether it's overt or covert, that explains to you either highly over masculine in its inverted state, or over feminine in its overted state or inverted state. But that is information for another time. And so, to come back to your question that you've asked about the giants, I've suggested that you must reference the information of the Babylonian, Sumerian, Persian religions. And that is where the giants are often referenced as. The temples or cults in the Persian beliefs referenced to when someone had applied something very specific, which was very much related to, I would say, he was a giant in the industry. Do you understand the way that it was referenced as? So yes, there were originally much taller individual or humans once upon a time in this archaeological path of human existence. But as you go through reality, as you start to expand on things, you start to adapt to your environment, which is a sociological, anthropological changes that you will be going through. So naturally speaking, you will find many taller people, or back in the day, or you'll find them here and there, depending on the bloodline. So you need to have common sense when you look at the giants. And if they have discovered these giant bodies and present beings, people in archaeological diggings, then yes, accept that it is a possibility that those type of people have also existed, but not in the embellished or over exaggerated version as how it was once described in the beliefs itself, in the material. And that comes to the next part of the question that you've asked about the fallen angels and what they really are about. And so what I want to explain to you is that the perspective of the fallen angel itself is an element that is referenced to the word angel. First of all, break it down. What does the word angel mean? The word angel here, and I've given you a quote, and again, I've said to you the information will be on my website to read what you've asked, and then to see my answers on there, and then see the information in the video itself. So you will have to look at it in this way, because the question section in the video channel itself is too short for the involved answers that I'm giving to you. So the word angel derives from the word from Greece, or the Greek angelos. It is translation of a Hebrew meaning messenger. So again, if you can see that the translations are very much related to the religions and the beliefs of that time, or of the time when the information comes through. It is very much like what we're doing right now when we are observing information in the books, in the material that has been written by many people that have come before us with the same drive to assist humanity to find the knowledge within themselves. Although I have a very strong feeling that this is has not, let me put it this way. I feel that at the time when the information was coming through, only a few managed to grasp it each time. And so now I do have a feeling that it's expanding to a much bigger space of understanding, where you are then becoming more aware of your inner wisdom. There's more of you who will understand this, which is what I am very grateful for, including within myself, because as I'm speaking to you, I am also listening, and I am also the witness to the information that is coming out from myself as well. And that must never forget that we are all, you and myself and those who are observing, who are here within the intention of wanting to expand and learn, to grow within yourself, as that we are all individual, unique consciousness, fingerprints, or parts of Great Spirit. We all make up Great Spirit. We are the expressions individually and creatively within love of Great Spirit. So if you see any one of us, if you look at any one of those we are speaking with, your friends, people who are observing this information, again, I want to say, be reminding yourself that the information is sacred once there is a discussion about it, because then it elevates you both into a touching base with Great Spirit within that present moment. And so, in that, as many of you have observed and commented, that where there are more of us, there is creation taking place, loosely quoted. So that is how it works. If we discuss a plan of action that we would like to take place, and we would sit down and talk about this in any form, but we would speak in the frequency or the energy that we are in when we speak, then that is where creation takes place. And so that which is naturally the next level of energy to take shape is then an angel or a messenger of that light. So internally, being aware of the inspiration in your thoughts, it's coming to you as an inspiration. So it's the first spark of light. It is that same reference to the star that the wise men were following. That light or that star, when you bring it within yourself, is your first thought or first inspired idea to become then something to think about. And then when that thinking about motion in the temple takes place, or in the mountains where the sun rises, then in that way you are then able to talk about that light, that thought, that idea with another person. And that idea or thought is a messenger. In other words, you are angelic in that reference. And if the light falls or descends into becoming something of, you are changing the plan a little bit here and there, you're tweaking the idea a little bit here and there, then the light descends. It never falls. They refer to once you bring your thought into action and you are now engaging in the action. This is coming from Gnostic beliefs, that if you are thinking about something and you're wanting it to become a reality, that light is fallen in their eyes. Now, there's a difference between Gnosis, Gnostic, let me not say Gnosis, Gnosticism. Gnosticism was a group that was founded very long time ago. I'm not going to give you timelines. It's irrelevant. Time is not related. And the Nag Hammadi scriptures referred to them as well. In fact, the Nag Hammadi scriptures came from them, loosely placed, in that time, in that period, in the existence of that time. The Gnostic people believed that, and there are a few videos on my channel where there's references to how the information was changed with regards to the archetypal belief of the sacred thought, which is feminine, as the Pistis Sophia. That is information that I will discuss much later. I want you to focus on what I'm trying to explain to you, where the fallen term comes from. They believe that once this reality is created, it is a fallen state or a state of evil. It is essentially loosely explained that once there is the existence here in this reality, the physical reality is evil. Okay? They see it as evil because they feel that you lose track of yourself. It is dependent on you. You determine whether you want to be living in a state of sin in the physical reality, or whether you want to exist, as I'm saying, from within my own personal life experience, where I'm living within this reality and I honor myself, my own experience and my interaction with reality, but I never worship it at all. I don't let it consume me at all. Yes, I need to eat and live off of it. Yes, then I do so, but I do it with respect towards the awareness, or the greater awareness, that this reality is existing because of myself, because of who I am. And again, this is personal, that I'm sharing with you how I feel and where I am. So it is my opinion. So this is definitely an open discussion for yourself to explore in how you feel. So creation is not fallen. This reality, your thoughts, once you create, once you go into your existence, once you operate within your thoughts, the light is not fallen. It descends at its own steam, at its own will, to then bring to you what the next step of your creation is. So, an example. I need to have a job. I don't have a job. I've lost my job. I don't have money. I'm really stuck. They're going to switch off the lights. Let me give you an example. And there's literally nothing else to do. You don't have any other way to go forward. You're stuck. So the first thing that happens to you is you're at your lowest point in your physical existence. Then you start to think really deeply about what it is that you feel needs to happen for you to get forward into your life. Now, bear in mind, if you've got no money in your wallet, it's completely empty. You don't even need a wallet. For days, you've never needed a wallet. Your landlord is a creep because he keeps on abusing his rights and he keeps harassing you. You've got friends. And the friends that you have, they don't really know the capacity of your experience of where you are. And so you start to think as deeply as you can within your lowest state of your existence, physically. Now let's add kids to the mix, okay? Let's add children to the mix. I don't have kids, children at all, but I have family who have children. So I can just imagine that that must feel extra hard for you to go through. You feel that you could literally go and steal to go and get food for your family to feed them. And B, you need to find a job ASAP to get, but then when you get the job, you still need to feed everyone else. Okay. Let me explain to you how amazingly powerful this creation works now. Because what I'm referring to is literally that's what happened to me. And so that is why I can explain to you where you will find yourself. And you think deeply within yourself, what am I supposed to do? I need to find a way to do this. These are the things I need to have happen. But you know what? I'll allow the things to take place because I don't feel I have enough resources to challenge it in any particular way. So then, you keep continuing in your thoughts, thinking in that same process, and you're wondering, where do I go from here? And you talk to your friends and you ask, listen, do you have a bread here? Is there something that maybe you could share with me? Maybe a tin or something, some this, some that. And you start to beg your friends, and they don't really know still, but because they're your friends, they love you, they say, yeah, sure, I've got this and this and that for you in the next. And imagine this takes longer than a week. This becomes now a month, and you've now lost the ability to pay for your rent and your place to live. The next place that you can go to is either to go back to your parents, or to really maybe live in your car, or which is probably the ultimate space. If you didn't have a car, now they're going to come and fetch the car much later, and so it goes on and on and on and on. And I feel I can explain to you my story here because it's important so that you understand that I have gone through the process myself. So I was my own guinea pig. Okay, so therefore, what I'm explaining to you is physically, from experience, that these are the things that work. Okay. Then I came to the point in my thoughts, in my mind, that literally I must now ask, because the knowledge says to me, the wisdom says to me, Great Spirit exists in all of these things. And yet not for one moment did I think I should actually ask Great Spirit to please provide for me, because I don't have anything else to provide. So the strangest thing happens then, once my thoughts are mulling with the inspirational light within my consciousness, and I start to now choose, because there's nothing else, right? You don't have anything else. You can literally only give yourself into that point of existence, of that information, of that energy. And so, in itself, the information starts to trickle through to you. You start to look around online. You're looking everywhere, thinking, God, I don't even know what to ask for. So, with discussing this particular information with your friends, your family, they say, why don't you write down what it is that you want to do? So I'm like thinking, okay, I'm writing down what I want to do. It's like really insane. It's like I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to be really funny and just say, let me just do this. It's irrelevant what it is that I wrote down, but it is important for you to understand how it happened. And for days, now this is a month, okay? I start to find myself seeing that I have a framework of work, of information, of a job that I'm envisioning, that I would love to have. And this is when this channel started. This channel was born out of that information, because I wanted to help people. And I wanted to have a healthy exchange of energy with the people that I communicate with and that I can help. And it must be such an exchange that I would be able to survive as I needed to survive. And so to cut the part out, or to cut the story shorter, because once you're mulling back and forth within your thoughts, the first thought that becomes an inspired idea is to you, your angelic messenger coming from your higher self. And that angelic messenger, your higher self, which is Great Spirit, which is Spirit, speaks through your loved ones to you and says, write it down. Be descriptive as to what it is that you want to achieve. And look at it every day. And don't worry about the rest. And so I did. And so within the following month, after this channel was created, because that is what came to me, is to create a channel and to be of assistance to help people, I started becoming involved in healing and using my psychic, intuitive, shamanic experiences, wisdom, the knowledge, to help others. And so here I am today, after many years. When this channel was created in 2016, here I am today, and I am living in a life that I have always wanted to be in. I was describing each and every moment of my life, how I would have wanted it to happen as well. And so it took place. It took place within the first thought that descended into becoming something physical, something tangible for me, which is the material reality that I had to work in to exist. And so I was able then to, after a long time, after many years of being very involved, helping people and able to help myself in the same way. And I'm enjoying it in that way, because that is how you create your life going forward. And I felt that this was very important for you to understand how you can never say that, and the message that comes from within as the thoughts within yourself is a fallen element. It is not a fallen element. The messenger descends into the materia, which is this reality, and it becomes a reality. It becomes physical. And so I've practiced that methodology for everything in my existence. And I've become much more proficient in doing that as it is, as we require, as so below, as above, so below. Testing and exploring and experiencing it over and 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 over, until you are able to feel that it is your first thought that comes to you every moment of your waking existence. And so that is what is the crux of the information that we are sharing on this channel. That is why this information, and I can say, is unique, because it is unique to the experience that we are all having as we speak. And so I hope that has made sense to you, to understand what the whole reference to the fallen angel is. A fallen angel, roughly explained, is a messenger of higher self, the spirit, that comes to you from a greater spirit form within you, that comes to you as an inspiration and then becomes a reality, or it becomes something physical once you engage with that thought, and it becomes part of the material reality around you. It becomes a physical, tangible, created process. That is it. Gnostics hate it. They don't like the world. They discarded the Sophia element as saying that the entire creation process is evil, and therefore there was a lot of feminine negative descriptive elements with regards to the Sophianic element itself. Sophia is really the energy that is mulling through with you as you are deciding what it is that you want to do. Okay, so it's just a reference or a metaphorical explanation of your life. And just for interest's sake, my story that I'd shared with you, I lived like that for many years before that. We grew up very poor, and so it took a long time to understand how and what it was all about, to remember everything again. And I can tell you that potentially everything that I had gone through as a child growing up and where I am now, irrespective of the details in between, which I'm not going to share, is personal to me, um, is was placing me in the lowest form of my existence each and every time. It was a depressing energy pushing me down so that I will keep pushing back up. And that is my process of how I explore and expand within my own consciousness. So I may have required that process. It does not necessarily mean that you would require that process. You may have it in a different way. Like I said, we are all individually unique within our own experiences. We are never the same. We are not the same. We are not in a hive, but we operate as a whole body of great spirit within ourselves. And so the information that we're discussing here comes from inspiration, comes from great spirit. It doesn't come from any outside guides. I do not have guides. I never have had guides. I never required guides. Guides are just extended versions of myself. I have mainly focused to explore the information and the knowledge within myself at any given point in time. Therefore, I do not require something outside of me to try and define to me who I am. I define myself for me as I go through life. And this is not egoic either. This is to explain and to be in a defined position, in an actualized state where I've explored and seen it within myself. And so why I'm saying it to you in this way is to say that you are doing the same. We are not sheep. We are not a blanketed mass of bodies of consciousness. We are unique within ourselves, individual to perfection within each and every one of you. You have a unique, perfected energy inside of you that is wanting to come through and explore and express. And you may have touched on it a few times in your life. And so this information, this body of work, or let's call it the opus grande, because this is what it is. There is nothing else other than this information, is information that will be your food, your soul, your spirit food to your soul. And, or as they say in Afrikaans, padkos for you to use. So I'm leaving that with you, and I will go to the next part of the question. So, when I explain, I explained that fallen angel is just fallen, is just a descendant, is light in descendants. As you, I trust that you would understand that. There is a religious connotation to that particular terminology. Don't get distracted by religions or faith movements or beliefs as such. Be convinced, be actualized. You do not require an outside source or force to tell you how to believe to get to yourself, unless this person can bring healing with you, for you, and only the correct way of healing must take place. As if I want to bring healing to you, you come to ask me for some healing and you're struggling with something, I must be able to have cleared your situation inside of myself already before I can actually enter into being of service or assistance to you. And so that is how healing actually operates. If I want to make the blind man see, I must be able to remove the blindfolds from my own eyes. That is how this energy, how this knowledge operates. It will never be anywhere else, in any other form. This is why it's very unique. And you've known this all of your existences. I'm just reminding you. That's all I am, is just to remind you of yourself. And then we've got work to do. Okay, so you have also asked another question here. So, okay, let me see You have asked the next question, and please, again, like I've said to you before, please find the answers fully answered and the questions fully notated on my website. The website is on my channel. You will see it there. It's the Promethean. And okay, remember that it's a choice to believe anything. The choice that you have to believe in anything is part of your free will. But the other part of your free will, remember now, as above, so below. As above, so below. What you think and feel, what you think, you feel. What you see, you interpret. There will always be that. What you see outside of yourself is within you. You are a micro version of a macro experience. That is a cliche in itself anyway. So your choice to believe in what is outside of you may be part of your life path. I will never judge you for that either, because we all have gone through those processes. You must understand, though, that the only way that creation takes place is from within, and so it then becomes something that exists outside of you. And I have explained how the actual creative process takes place. There is no other way that it exists. I've explored it. There is no other way. The whole, just for interest's sake, that whole thing about the great secret, or the secret, that is, did I say this? I'm gonna say this again. That is bullshit. Okay, the secret is bullshit. It does not work that way. They only gave you a small part to understand of creation, and you will never be able to understand the rest, because that is how they want to keep you hooked to run after the carrot. Okay, so all creation starts from within, and it's because I've experienced it in that way, and I've tested it numerous times. And as I've said, there's no information that comes here on this channel that I have not experienced or proved within myself, or, as a good friend says, distilled within myself to explain it, to understand it better. Always comes from within first, and then shared outwardly. Okay. All right. This material world is tangible because what is in the material world is cast into the material world. The story about the fallen angel in the Bible, as in many other scriptures or books from many beliefs, many religions, we use those books as reference material. It is irrespective of what particular book I'm doing it from, is to explain to you that the whole story about the fallen angels that were cast down on the earth to come and mess with come sleep with the human woman. I think that story is also very heavily indoctrinated as a to separate you from actually understanding that once we speak to each other about something really brilliantly amazing, some information, that once we talk about it, you and I, and we're now going to go and we're going to create this little thing, we're going to build this car, we're going to build this thing, and we discuss the information then with others. That is how that process takes place. So even then, when they got hold of these books, of lesser knowledge, because that is what is called exoteric. Exo means book. Information that is outside in book form means lesser knowledge, not because it is not purer, but that it does not hold the power over the actual creation itself, but that it is only a reference or a guide to look into, to observe. So when I say lesser knowledge, I am not referring to it is not pure. I am referring to it as it is there, but it is not the sole process of creation. That is exoteric. Okay, exoteric. What is important and where creation starts is esoteric, inside. And it is a higher or more profound or more purer form of creation takes place from within. It is the only way creation takes place from within. So why is it important to understand how to learn to create? And more importantly, learn to understand or stand in the knowledge of truth. And the knowledge of truth is to understand it to be information that comes from your spirit, which is a direct expression of great spirit within and around us, that force that exists within this reality and outside of this reality, in this entire cosmos, is because that is your firstborn right. And that is what the intention of the information was all about. Why is it that the priesthood or the ministry of magic, the Babylonian priesthood or the priesthood of Samaria or the Tower of Babel's priesthood, etc., 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 whatever you want to call them, why do the bad guys don't want you to learn to create? The reason for that is because once you start to become aware that you can create within yourself, you can basically tell them to get lost. You can tell them to become invisible, get lost, disappear, go away, F off. And they will do it because they don't have anything else to counter it. All they can do is to try and create disinformation to make you feel doubtful about yourself so that you will comply to their power, only because of the grandiose, massive megacity power structures and globalist element, this big monster that can dwarf you down because you're tiny and insignificant. They managed to do it quite well because over the centuries, many of these people that have gone through these revolutions have literally had to step down to give in to their drive, which is the worship of the materialism or the materia, this world. And essentially, they are worshipping the inverted expression of Sophia. Now I'm going to explain to you something else. This is not part of your question, but I am giving you this information because you have to understand the full picture. Sophia, again, which is in reference to the Gnostics' belief of creation as being feminine, the story goes as such where they needed her to, they were, okay, so I'll read this to you. It's a very short description of it. In the Gnostics believe that their creation story of Sophia was seeing God's creations, desired to make something of her own. This is a metaphorical representation of creation, okay? It has got a feminine reference to it. The being she formed was her son, Yaldabaoth, who had the face of a lion and the body of a serpent. Because of the relationship to Yaldabaoth's creation, Sophia became known and worshipped as the mother of the universe, which is their interpretation of creation. Okay, if you go beyond that, if you read a little bit further along, you'll see that if you go into the information of the Gnostics, and again, please look at the videos on the channel. There is a lot of references to the I think there was a video that I called the Worm Boy and the inversion of Sophia. Please have a look at that. You'll see where I've described and explained these things in a bit more detail, which means that is what they are driving at. They want to, so these priesthood or the Ministry of Magic has taken or copied information from the Gnostics because it suits them to destroy the awareness or the beauty or the natural beauty of this reality, because it does hold natural beauty and it is organic. You have to look at things with an objective view, and it's keyed into their narrative. Okay, so we're dealing with the Gnostics who said that the creation, that this world is evil because she couldn't, she wanted to be like her father. She wanted to create like her father or the god, as this is now Sophia, and she lost it and created some freak. And his name is Yaldabaoth. And this is a little demigod that is now supposedly being given a name of Baphomet eventually, and Baphomet is then another reference to Sataniel or El Shaitan. And that is how they mess up the information. That's how they've woven it up together so that you see this one big ball of shit. Explain it like that. So what we're doing here is we're dismantling all the information so we can actually see how it works. This reality, this material reality, must not be worshipped. It is beautiful, it is organic, and it is there to assist us. We must not let it control us or dominate us. The Gnostics believe that this reality is malevolent and holds a lot of malevolent, ill energy with regards to the spirit itself. Okay, they were the ones that believed that once you think of something and you bring it into this reality, that it is then called a fallen angel, and that whole then references to the essential Lucifer element, which means light that is descended, not it is lux, which is light. Light descends into action, which then becomes creation, where you build the house eventually after you've thought about all the plans. And so that is an archetype. Okay, remove the fear from the archetype itself. It is just a reference. Okay, and the same goes to the archetype of Satan or Satan or El Shaitan, which means judgment over the creation. When you and I discuss something and we then decide after we've built the house and we walk around the house and we see, oh, the tiles wasn't fully built on the roof there, you know, or we've got to put the downpipe in, or it doesn't have a sewage system, or whatever the hell it is. Don't get lost in the details. That is judgment over your thoughts, over yourself, or shit, I should have created a little bit more of this, or I should have added a little bit more salt to that, or a little bit of pepper, or it's a terrible cake mix. Doesn't matter. Okay. It is just judgment. Satan is an archetype that is reference to judgment. Lucifer is an archetype referring to lux or light in physical reality, expressed in reality. Everything in this reality has a flip side to it. That means there is duality in this reality. It has a light and a dark, reference to both sides. We are observing it all for what it is, and we can then appreciate that a painting does have depth, and image speaks to it of itself when you can see that there's a little bit of shade in the drawing. That's not just a one-dimensional image that we're looking at. We're looking at a massive painting. We're looking at an orchestra of music a lot of things that key in. Some sounds on its own is really terrible, but if once it's put into the bigger picture, you'll hear it makes a beautiful ensemble or a much, much better appearing painting that you're looking at. So you have to have perspective when you look at the things around you. Okay, so again, remove the fear of thinking that there's devils walking around and we're in Armageddon. Okay, every day is Armageddon once you realize that your your beliefs in terms of the reality around you is breaking down. It's broken down. It shocks you, makes you feel disturbed once you've understood that everything is really inside of you, and you feel stressed about it. That is your interpretation or how you feel about what you explore and see around you. It's like you found out information for the first time. It may feel stressful to you, or maybe like, wow, I've always looked for this. That doesn't matter. It depends on how your perception is with regards to this reality. The Ministry of Magic has taken information or copied information from the Gnostics, and they have reconfigured it into their Babylonian text information, where they are feeding it into the system and then saying, yeah, they really want to have everyone believe that there is a little demon called Yaldabaoth, which really was called Baphomet, which was also then used by the Knights Templar, the earlier ones, where they used the severed head of John the Baptist, and in that way they tried to create a fear around it so that there were not a lot of people that would come to try and join. They wanted only those who really sought to see through all of the damages, all of the if I don't want you to come join my club, then I'm going to show you an evil picture of my club, and then you'll stay away, unless you really, really want to come and see what's in my club house. That's basically that. Okay, so that is why it's important to understand that this reality holds as much importance to them as it holds importance to us in terms of our existence in it. Once we are understanding that we cannot be controlled or dominated by the reality that we exist in, and that we, from within ourselves, are able to have control over who we are then able to traverse in this reality. And that is where the reference of walking on water comes from. This reality holds, it is like the sea. Once I am in control of myself, I am able to walk on the waters. No magic. I can walk on the water. The water will not absorb me or swallow me. It's very important to be mindful of that. They hold that power because they want to bring in the inverted explanation of some demonic energy. They are driving this, okay? This is their story. You choose how you feed into that story. They are driving that story because they want to have the next thing come up to be their new world order of religion, which is a belief in Satanism. And Satanism is the shadow of judgment, or the inversion of judgment, which means you can do whatever you want and you'll be happy about it. There, you see how that works. You see what that means? What is the opposite of judgment? It means free. You can do whatever you want. But, in other words, they can bend you back over like that and they'll say, yeah, it's okay. It's because there's no laws. It's as free. It is the inversion of Thelema as well, where Aleister Crowley had projected that information in. Though he had intentions of trying to explain that there will be a new aeon coming in, the information really holds that do what thou wilt shall be the highest, and it was very badly followed through, of course. And I'd say that backfired badly, because do what thou wilt can mean go and run and break into a house and rape the family, just like the Mansons did, and then say, but the angels of light told me to come and really destroy that person. Do you see how chaotic that is? So if there's no law, there is chaos. If there's judgment and there's no judgment, it means there's chaos expressed. Okay, so they're driving the Satanistic element, which is the belief of the shadow of judgment. Keep it in mind, okay? So, your next question was, can the coming of Christ be a very old story where previous nations had contact with higher dimensional beings and naming them God? Okay, so first of all, you need to understand what you're asking. The coming of Christ. Christ means light expressed. It is the same as Lucifer or Lux expressed. Christ is crystallized, though. The word Christos or is the crystallization of light. So in other words, if I want to give you an example of light crystallized, then I'll show you this. How you look at light shining through this crystal is Christos. Okay? In other words, it is crystallized. It is frozen light. So the coming of frozen light, yeah, I'd say, definitely comes from a lot of interpretation of misunderstanding of the knowledge itself. The expression of light must never be crystallized. Light must never be crystallized. It must never be held in a frozen state. It must always flow. It is warm. It is coming from within you. If you're learning all this knowledge, you will want to explain about it. You would talk about it. You want to share the information with your friends, and you want to discuss it and pull it apart and understand what it is. Or you can sit still and not say anything and just keep everything quiet and frozen. That is also your choice. So let us explain in your question what you're asking, if the information of God or the coming of Christ is in reference to God. The coming of Christ is an archetypal light in itself of an external belief that requires people to believe in, that they will stop connecting with the inner light within themselves. And when I say light, again, please understand, it is not white light or pink light or yellow light, or it is light as a frequency of knowledge. Knowledge. The kingdom of heaven is within. That is a very good explanation of what we're looking at. Okay. What holds, unfortunately, key to the Christos or the coming of Christ as an archetype is unfortunately coming from Egypt, where there was a strong drive to venerate Horus. Horus is a representation of a god that can hold the light stationary and see beyond everything. So that is a reference of that, okay, of Christ. Jesus or Jesua or Jesus, however you want to call the name, is a name of an individual that wanted to express the information. Just like my name is Aurora, I want to express the information to you. Therefore, you will see that the expression comes from within this work. And the same with you. If your name is Johannes or John or Peter or Paul or Sarah, and you are going to speak with your friend with peace within yourself, then you are embodying the expression of Christos, but it becomes expressed. It is not frozen, it is expressed. Okay, so that's a very tricky little thing there. Christ is related to the original belief of Horus, okay, which is an Egyptian god, which was the original or the originator of the whole Jesus Christ story or archetype. Okay. What or who was the next question? What or who was the light being that spoke to Amschel Rothschild? Good question. Now, do you remember when I explained to you about my story about finding the light coming in within myself? It didn't have a personified presence to it at all. It was just insight. The same element if you're in a place of absolute deep rest state, depending on your state of mind. If you're a negative sod, and you feel the world owes you a lot, then you will have the same experience. That thing that comes out to speak to you will give you the sinister plans to devise around the circumstances. It is as highly intelligent as the same information on the other side of it. So what I'm saying to you is, again, it comes back to the first part of the first video when I said you must understand that the word occult is important because it refers to that which is hidden, which can be interpreted with either negative connotation or positive connotation. It is the same as saying magic is powerful, but it depends on which occultist uses it for what purpose. Okay, so that is what that means. They only venerated it to become something personal, or they gave it a personification to that archetype, because what they required from people was to believe that there was some holiness thing that came and gave them information to steer them in the right way of what it was that they wanted. But I can tell you, I can assure you, if you're a negative, malevolent person like Charles Manson, for example, all he did was to go and use the same process as the Upanishads or the Himalayan Tibetan Buddhists. You wouldn't name it whatever. He used the same process, the same protocols as the holiest rishis when they were going into their deepest spiritual communication with the higher self. He used the same technique, exactly the same technique, and he contacted that which is of him a highest form within his negative state of consciousness. He's psychologically damaged or brilliant or psychopathic just in nature, cold-hearted, and you will call a cold-hearted thing out to come and speak with you. That is very important for you to understand, okay? Which may explain to you the whole idea about what really is evil. So all archetypes that people believe in has everything, actually, has a dark side to it when it's interpreted or expressed in a malevolent form, as I've explained with Charles Manson. For those of you who don't know who Charles Manson is, please look it up. So your next question that you've asked is, many tribes and nations have drawings of spaceships, etc. If we have previous lives, why can't we remember them? So my question to you is this. If your question is to ask if there are other space brothers and sisters outside in the universe, then my answer to you will be, this is correct. However, it must be seen and reviewed how information is also interpreted. So you need to use your awareness that to be a space brother or an ET or an extraterrestrial, whatever you want to call it, is also relative to where you are in yourself. Your human DNA or the human species or let me say it this way. The human species in itself, and that means a human is also interpreted, or an earthling itself, its DNA foundation blocks come from all over. This, like I've said to you before, is not the only and first and foremost creation ever to have existed. There have been multiple other creations prior to this reality. And so it is important that you must understand that what you work with comes to you as you require it to be. Those who speak in reference to saying, oh, but I am from Orion, or I am from Syrian, or this or that, on the next. These are all references to potential past life memories that might be coming through. And then there are those, as I've said to you, and I will say it again, how they interpret the information to be, whether it's to shock you or wow you, to make you worry about being visited by extraterrestrials. I can tell you this, though, that I have been visited by interdimensional or intra-dimensional visitors from the dimensions around in this reality, and many of them I will then call as extra or intra-dimensional travelers. Those are people or beings that have come to live and experience the reality here, and that they traverse into other realities as well. Dimensional travelers. Okay. So the information that we are discussing here, as I've said to you before, is multidimensional chess. Call it that. Multidimensional chess in physical, metaphysical explanation purposes. Okay, so just as I've explained to you, the information that you look at around you is exoterrestrial or exoteric, and what is inside of you is esoteric. Okay, and the word exoteric or esoteric means that which is around you that holds a type of informational frequency or data that you can understand and interpret from within yourself. Again, as I've said, everything is always from the inside out, and that what you see, you determine what you want to bring into yourself. Again, it's the same way as allowing yourself to ingest something without really seeing what it can do for you. Common sense. So your next question is this: how did our spirits come into existence? So that is a very important question. Our spirits that come into existence comes from the sacred breath that is expressed from Great Spirit itself. When you were created, you were already there before you were created. You were part of a bigger existence. You were part of an individual consciousness such as Great Spirit. And I use this example, which I'm going to bring to your attention again, as the same sort of analogy for you to look at. It's a metaphorical analogy. So when the flood happened and Noah had to create an ark is a promise, and he was on the sea or on the waters, and he needed to find land, and he sent out a crow and he sent out a dove, and many days later the dove came back and the crow never came back. Okay, let me give you the example now. Think with me here, walk with me, please. The ark, or Noah and the ark with all the animals in it Noah is the soul. The ark is the spirit of Great Spirit. Okay? The water, the sea, the floods, the everything, the birds, the whole freaking image picture is Great Spirit. Okay? Great Spirit connects with its soul, which is Noah, which is the masculine, sends out a dove. Use the dove and a crow. Okay, you see the duality. The crow is the inversion of the dove. Not just because it's black. Okay? So the dove is sent out. You're the dove. You're sent out into this reality to go and explore and to see if there's land that you can come and speak with, you can exist in. It is the same way as I am speaking to you right now, and I'm sending out the dove, which are the words that I'm talking to you about, except I'm sending doves and crows out to you to decide if you want to have land for the dove, the information, or the soul, or the spirit, the spirit to land on, to then bring back the information to me to see if you understand. So you're asking me questions, you and I are sending doves and crows to each other. And that is how that works. And the same process, the spirit was created out of the first breath of energy, which is a spark of light, which is first thought of bringing a person called Johannes to come. I'm not giving your real name here. To go into this world and to bring to me, back to me, sign of life that the waters have started to recede. The waters are the massive emotional levels of inside of you. Emotion is water. Okay, it is also reference to the people, or the mass of people, a sea of people. Do you understand the reference in that? Okay, and in such a way, the dove then lands and brings back to Noah a olive branch, which is, I'm accepting the information that Johannes is receiving the information that I'm sending to him with peace. Olive leaf, olive branch. And if your name was Charles Manson, you would want to just keep the crow. The crow is judgment. The crow is a symbolic reference to judgment. The crow is also there to be the messenger or the guide to help those who have died to cross over. That is an old shamanic Native American information that is ancestral to us as well. In our ancestral presence, from where we come from, our ancestors are part of Great Spirit, okay? So we are automatically, and our ancestors including, are all part of Great Spirit, irrespective of what our races are, irrespective of where we come from, irrespective of what color skin we have. We are root races that are connecting in Great Spirit as an expression, okay? As I've said to you, please remember to go back to the first video to understand what is the first creation. You will see where I've explained it. First creation is void, and the second creation is the reality that we're existing in right now. And it is also the reality that we are transversing through. We are traveling away from the second creation, which means we are letting go of the hold of it on us, so that we are able then to bring in a third creation, which is where we are driving at. We're literally neck on neck with the other ones, the other lot, the Ministry of Magic. They want the third reality as well. They want to bring in a new aeon, which is called the Aeon of Horus. Or, again, as you see now, do you understand the whole idea or the concept of Horus as being an old god? Archetypal reference of crystallized energy. When there's a lot of graphene oxide in the body, it tends to crystallize things, hold it in place, freezes you so that you are unable to express it. Okay, as I've said to you and I've warned you before, this video will be lengthy. Okay, and I cannot break it up into another chunk. Once this video is completed, the information that will come in after that will be the knowledge series of the third, and that will then be embodying all the information of the questions that you have all been asking over time as well. Okay, so your next question is this. Is the first internal, okay, I would think we evolved on earth as flesh first and then spirit. And my answer to you is, on the contrary, if flesh was first and then spirit, there would be no wars taking place. In other words, there wouldn't be any drive, because really, if you were the problem to me, I would just, kill off your country, and I would then just take over your country. So things would then have been settled much quicker, not so. Think logically about what you're asking. The material world is not what we are fighting for. We just want to exist in a reality that we can say reasonably that we can live in peace in, that we can exist within, live off of, and carry on with our awareness of who we are, of where we are, and of finding the peace, the olive branch, to take it back to Great Spirit. We are all Great Spirit in plural. So the challenge is such. Materia is very malleable. It only becomes a physical, alive human, or it only becomes alive once the first breath is placed into the physical form itself. If you live without the awareness that you have a spirit and a soul, or that you have only a spirit, or that you have only a soul, but you do not acknowledge the spirit and the soul, you then live as a living husk of something that is not alive. Spirit is life. Spirit is fire. It is the energy that is here. And quite frankly, their drive is to incorporate eugenics into this, where they are wanting to clone or copy the state of mind and how you think, because they think that the spirit and the soul is inside of the brain. So they think that if they can copy that they can put it inside of a robot's body, that it's going to become alive. All it is going to become is just another glorified, much more involved, advanced computer, laptop, whatever you want to call it. And that is what that is. They would not have gone to the extent of what they have been doing if they only believed in the matter. They know that there is more to just matter than meets the eye. They want to eradicate those who are alive and who are listening here and who are listening to information that reminds us of our sacred knowledge within. They want to eradicate that, because if they can do that, then they can say that they are the first creation, void beings that can have control over everything else. So what we have here is a war between life and that which is not alive. Not dead, not alive. So in other words, an automaton, or you can call it a golem. A golem is a clay being which is made in the shape of whatever you want to call it, and they pray over it and do all kinds of rituals around it, kill something, and then bring that spirit into that dead object. And that non-living object, or that piece of clay, becomes animated by their power of their belief. That is how they believe they create, okay? And that is called an egregore. Once that egregore, it's like calling your car her, she, Betty, whatever you want to call it. If you personify something that is not organic, and you give that personification, you give that belief in your car as she's quite a steady Do I need to explain that even further? I mean, you can follow what I'm trying to explain to you about giving something that is inanimated, a physical presence. That is a false, void first creation. Okay. If they can perpetuate that process, it means then that they don't have to have organic energy. They don't want you to think for yourself. Just remember that that is where all these other New Age things started coming in, where they wanted to say to you, no, but there's this group of entities outside that'll look after you. You know, you don't have to think about it. Don't worry your little head. You know, I will help you find the path to salvation. The salvation lies through me as your door, holy door, etc., etc., etc. Okay. Please do not lose perspective on your questions that you're asking. Go to the other ones again. Okay. Let me answer your next question. You asked, what force or universal program is responsible for our spirit to find new flesh after death? It is a force and not a program. Your will is the force that is the masculine representation or metaphorical reference to seeking life to come back into. Okay. In other words, that is your firstborn right to seek a vessel, to seek another chance to come back in. It is your will. Okay. And that is part of the natural law. Okay. Your will is the blueprint for the will of Great Spirit. Great Spirit will always seek to send out a little dove to come bring back to Great Spirit proof of life. Okay. Proof of existence can be found in the universal laws and cosmic laws of knowledge, that what one thinks and speaks becomes made manifested. First rule number 1. What you think of becomes and speak of becomes a physical reality. It becomes real. It is a manifestation of proof of creation. You asked next question, do ghosts exist? A ghost is a German word for Geist, which means Geist, which means spirit. And it is just another word, a fearful word that was made by religion of those who have passed on. Us as spirited beings, when we drop our physical vessel, we become just spirit because our soul is temporarily present in this world. It is only known as the anima mundi, your soul. The Uber driver, don't forget, your Uber driver or your soul becomes absorbed back into you as spirit. That is how it works. Okay, you don't lose it. It doesn't float away. It becomes reabsorbed by your spirit. You reabsorb your personal representation of your persona that you want to represent here. Your representation of or your interface for your spirit is your soul. The spirit is eternal. Yes, you do exist as in your spirited form. I do think that that explains your question. Next question. Is astral traveling real? If so, what is it used for and is it dangerous? Can't wait. So, okay, astral travel exists, yes. It is not safe if you are not prepared properly to apply the techniques in the work itself. In other words, you must get rid of your fear of anything and everything around you that you will ever experience. You must be able to sit in the quiet, dark room and not be afraid of things that go bump in the night. You must want to understand and explore you first before you even try to explore the realities and the dimensions around you. That is how you are able then to understand how astral traveling works. You can astral travel when you sleep, when you're thinking of someone and you miss that person. You will then wander there in your conscious thoughts, and you will then be there as a presence with that person. And so astral travel, as much as they give you all these rituals to do before you prepare yourself for it, is to suggest to you that you must be very careful once you try it, that you have conquered the fear within your thoughts, first of all. Okay, so next question, and of course use common sense, always. You have asked, what are the 144,000? That's a very good question. The 144,000 are the 144,000 points of light or energy, points that Great Spirit consists out of. So you want to say that Great Spirit is like this giant golf ball, and all the dimples on the golf ball each represents one point of light. And there are 144 bits or pieces or points of light that is the sum size, physiological size, that is quantifying it. We cannot do that, but please understand the way that I'm trying to explain is the size of Great Spirit at any given point in time in this reality. So it does not mean that that is all there is, the size of Great Spirit, but you will only see at any given point in time in this reality parts of 144,000 exist at the same time. So that is a very good question. Thank you. Okay, so you have asked me the question, have I ever heard of eschatology? William Walter method. So what I wanted to say to you is I've researched it and I am aware of it, but how I understand it from my perspective is that it is related to the actual death process, and it is a good question because that is something that I will be discussing, what happens when we pass on, when we leave our physical form, our vessels, and that we are meant to actually leave our physical form. We are not meant to live forever in a physical form, irrespective of what's been said and believed and pushed around. Do you see a tree that is over 1,000 years old still standing? It is its spirit matrix that it exists in that particular age, and so it will live in that age, but it will go eventually to dust, because this reality, this materia, is meant to have a lifespan, because it is related to the changes of creations. My creation can stay as long as I wish it to stay within myself. And so your question, back to your question, and to go into detail is what I've answered you here. And again, please look on my website to see the answers and the questions there more in much more detail, because the question space, the space to answer your question is not available on the channel. Unless I start to bring, I would suggest that we create a community, but I'll think about that. Okay, so in the reference to which is believed to happen, what is to believe to happen to the soul in the death aspect of life, or the end times, that is also related to that particular word in itself. Every day, as I've said to you, is to you, to whomever listens to information for the first time, when they come across it, as a sense of feeling of end times, when that which you have believed in for a long time is no more, or holds no more water to you, or it holds no more power to hold you bound to it, which ties into the word religion as well. Religion, the word itself, means to tie you in or to bind you to a particular belief. And we are without bonds as such. We do not require to be bound into anything anymore. That is your choice, that is your free will, and that is part of the natural order of this universe, this particular universe. There is a quote that I want to give you. When you change that belief from knowing that the spirit is not the soul and that the soul is only the anima mundi, it is in reference to the temporary wanderer, or the anima mundi, which means earth dweller. The quote, a vital force or principle conceived of as permeating the world. And this is called the world soul, or the soul itself. That's why I said to you that the spirit is the infinite potential, infinite consciousness, and that the soul is the temporary element and becomes reabsorbed back into the spirit, depending on what lesson you're going to be going through in this reality. So therefore, the physical death process does take place, but once you pass on from your physical vessel, you are then in a free spirited form. Your soul has then within a week has then been reabsorbed by you, and therefore your metaphysical presence is spirit in itself. And in that way, the first thing you'll encounter is based on what you have learned to clear up in your life. If you have still very strong religious roots in the background of your existence, you will then be shown in the deepest parts of your spirit matrix, or the spirit structure itself, that you will see things that will relate to you, correlate to you, something to do with choosing between seeing an angel coming to you or seeing a person coming as a being of light, or you will see the bright white light. I always say, if you don't want to get thrown back into the cycle again, your free will is to choose to not go into the tunnel of white light, but to go into the energy around it, which is a softer womb-like color in itself. And in that space, it will take longer for you, but you will essentially become less and less present in this reality as you choose it to be, to then return back to the womb of Great Spirit itself, yourself. And again, to explain to you that Great Spirit is never an energy that where there is no brain, where there's no individual consciousness as such. A Great Spirit is what makes Great Spirit unique, is the fact that Great Spirit, you are then a faculty of Great Spirit, which means Great Spirit would require to connect with you as you would connect with everyone else in that energy field. Okay. And the next question that was asked, I hope this has answered your question. I will expand on this question in another video after this, where I will discuss, given the types of questions that will come through now, which I know will come through, will be things of a much deeper nature. And so I will then focus again on that, on this question that you have asked. Thank you very much for that question. Okay, so the next question is, how do you create a reality for your family when you cannot buy or sell anymore? That takes away your entire chance of survival in a world of walls and borders where you cannot go and live in nature to survive. So that is your question that you have asked. I know that this has been on your mind, and I hope that I've answered the first part of the question. That question in the first part of my discussion about my life experience as it has been. And when I said that I had gone through the processes of when I was at the lowest point of my existence, it does not necessarily require for you to become at the lowest point of your existence. But if you're at that place where you are seeking to understand where to go towards, knowing that you need to live, it is important to write it down physically. Write it down. Discuss with your family what they want to achieve, how they want to experience things. The next part is then to speak it out every day as if a mantra, in a mantra way. And if you look at all the other videos on this channel, you'll see I've given a lot of mantras. There were a lot of other videos that had the mantra part in the beginning where I would say it, because it was related to the time of when that video had to go out. That is the spoken word or the breath of Great Spirit that is spoken in the intention of wanting a certain thing to take place. Okay, I hope that makes sense to you. The next question that you have asked is, why has the knowledge been hidden from humanity? So in order for you to understand about this knowledge, like I've explained before, the Ministry of Magic has infiltrated the institutions of human society, human existence. And when I say the institutions, I mean literally everything from the day you were born in this reality. Everything has been taken in accordance. The void creation beings, they require the house to be built in a particular way so that they can still have an existence coming into the reality. Therefore, they will, as it is in their nature to behave in a covert manner, always make sure that the information that we're discussing here, the knowledge itself, that's why there's nothing to say the sacred knowledge or the knowledge is truth. The knowledge is truth within you. There is nothing in this reality, in this universe, that is stronger than the knowledge which is truth. There is no excuse for truth, holds no excuse. Truth comes through to you for you to understand. How you determine how the knowledge works within you is to understand how you feel when you're listening to the information for the first time. If you feel, as I've said to you, trust your insight, and feel how the information touches you. If you feel it makes you feel, no, I don't believe that, then that is part of your belief. That is part of your journey. Again, as I've said, I don't judge you for feeling in that way either. So this is not just particularly to you who have asked the question. This is general statement saying that each and every one of us is unique and individual in our sovereign development. And each one of us holds a particular process within ourselves for how we learn and how we expand going forward. And that is your free will. That is part of the second tenet of the universal laws, which I will be discussing. They don't want you to know how to create, because if you know how to create, if you know how to go within yourself, then they don't stand a chance to exist ever, because then you will tell them, as I've said to you, fuck off. And that is what will happen to them. They will disappear because they are way over their shelf life, way over. They are now trying to make plans to become mechanical so that they can live, forever. And they are that desperate. That's why they want people to become the vessels, those who have gone for allowing themselves to be permeated with negative elements, if you were aware or not. Okay, if you were unaware of knowledge, you are innocent and you have gone ahead with that awareness. But if you have become aware of everything that has been revealed to you, and you have exhausted all the knowledge, all the information everywhere in the world, in yourself and within, and you still go ahead and you go and get yourself permeated by something that is like a debris from a grenade inside of your body, then that is on you. That is your part of your life that you have to go through to understand why you have overridden the higher awareness of your conscious self. Unless you have it within you to want to become part of the ever forever living life of the voided being itself. So eternal physical life, please get rid of that idea. It does not exist. And I know there will be some of you will be upset when I say this. You need to understand that This reality is not a permanent element. It is as permanent as the soul itself. In other words, once you have lived in this particular environment, I've lived in this office space, once I pass on, that which I have touched around me comes with me within my consciousness self. And that is why they say you must make sure that you gather treasures that cannot ever be touched by anything physical. Okay. Again, that is a story. That is information for another day. Next question that you've asked. I have, subconscious control starts in the mind. Yeah, okay, we'll leave it there. You have asked, how is reality built? I said, go back to the knowledge of the first video. Okay, and then you've asked me this. How, as creators, should we focus on finances? Is this something we even want or need in the third creation? Is this why there's so many pressures? So many words being said by silver or gold or that. Okay, I'll answer your question in chunks here for you. I just need to put it together. All right. How as creators should we focus on finance? Is it something that we even want or need in the third creation? Okay, so financial energy, money, the fiat system, the currency. Okay, financial energy. I'm calling it financial energy. Financial energy is part of this reality. It perhaps was not essentially in the beginning, because in the beginning things came out and there was a lot of exchange and bartering that took place. But once people couldn't exchange what they had to invent something to stand in the place of what it was that they had. Then it was still honored as, I have 10 sheep and therefore I can give you this ounce of gold, which will represent 10 sheep. And that was truthful, because you could see there the 10 sheep were, and I couldn't physically bring all 10 sheep into your pen. So we would then exchange gold, and you would understand that you didn't have a place for the sheep to go and live at or graze at, so you would then essentially let the sheep stay with me, but you had then bought up from me the piece of gold. Okay. Currency is an exchange of energy. In the third creation that we're going into, there is this third creation that we are entering into as we speak. You will have seen and observed already that there are a lot of people that are using the bartering system. They are using the exchange energy method system. And whenever there is something that is to be given, for example, information that you and I are exchanging with each other, we are exchanging the currency of the energy of that particular subject or that aspect or that thing. Okay, it is always going to be part of the human existence. Blood in, blood out. Do you understand? That is the basic currency exchange. Blood in and blood out, same thing. It is part of this duality of the light and the dark. Okay, remember that this reality and this existence and this plane, okay, is based on a light and dark, masculine, feminine, electric and magnetic frequency. These two link in together within the third part, which is the heart, and the heart is the center point or the center pillar of the star pillar, which is on the Freemason tracing board. You choose how you would want to have your financial focus be. It is your choice. If you choose to have metals and fiat currency and whatever else, That is part of your financial energetic exchange that you would like to have. It is your choice. If you choose not to have it with you and you want to live in a community where there's just only bartering taking place, that is also your choice. The third reality must be understood as a whole form of energy, which means it encompasses every single thing that makes this reality up for what it is. In other words, yes, I acknowledge masculine and feminine energy, creator, creation, electricity, electromagnetic energy, spirit, soul, vessel, mind, ego, all your faculties inside of you. You are aware of each and every faculty and how they interrelate with each other. It is the relationship between all things that is related to you. And that is what the third creation is all about. And so in the same principle, your question about finances, I understand what you're trying to ask, and you're asking me, should we start to gather things for this and this and that? And I want to say to you, choose how you and what you want to gather to interrelate to you. Use your common sense. If you feel directed to go and purchase gold, then do so. It is your choice. I am not a financial advisor. I never will be, and I never have been. All I am looking at is the energetic currency that you will have. It must never dominate you. You must never let it become worshipped. That is the only thing that you need to work on. If you do not have a lump of gold and you only have this stone, but you can work on someone's, you can paint, then that is part of your energetic signature that you will have as exchange, as a currency of exchange. The word currency is electrical. Okay, so it's masculine. And you are in control of how you use that. So again, you're asking, is this why there's so much pressure around us where people are saying, buy silver, buy gold, buy this, buy that, and put faith in this and put faith in the stocks here and quantum banking and all that stuff. Again, I hope my question, my answer that I've given you answers those questions, that you must decide what you feel when you look at it. If I show you this rock, how do you feel when you look at it? It is not for me to say, put faith in this. Ever. Must never be something like that. If I'm saying, you know what, I've got this rock, I like this rock, I've bought it so-and-so 12 years ago, and I like it with me because it's labradorite. To me, it's my personal investment to want to have purchased this. Okay? I hope you understand what I mean by this question. Okay, so this is a very good question. Before I go on to the next question, which is very interesting that you've asked this, and it ties into you explaining that people saying putting faith in supposed quantum banking, that you said you feel it's a psyop for you to create a savior program. When we go inside and create, very excellent question. I will explain that just now, but I do want to bring to your attention this, which was mentioned in a previous video with an interview with myself and Desmond Bernardo of the channel 00 Des. And for those who have not seen this video, please find the video and look into it, because there are 5 very important things that one has to consider consider these elements as tools to assist you to transverse into the third reality, where you need to have water, enough water, food, shelter, energy, and something to keep you sane. These elements are exceptionally important because it covers basically everything of yourself in the 5 sensory existence in this reality. And I want to add in the 6th part, which is the knowledge of your spirit, the spirited knowledge, which is holding up your system. Okay. So I'm just leaving that with you to think on. So you're saying to me, you think that this is a psyop because they're pushing so much the whole idea of investing in quantum banking and all that stuff. You know what? You're spot on right there. Anything that pushes the aspect of belief and faith in a particular direction where you feel like you're being corralled to to go with what they're saying is a psychological operation. A psychological operation has been created by the guys, the very people that you go to go and talk about your problems, the psychologists. So they listen to your story and then they work a way around it, and then that's how that works. This falls into the MK Ultra psychological program as well, but this information will be discussed in the next video. So yes, you are right. The Savior program is part of that. If you're meant to save them, yes, I understand what you're saying. You're saying that they put so much pressure on you that you need to invest in it because otherwise you need to save yourself, right? Because life is not going to be the same anymore. Okay, when there's that drive, a very serious, insane drive that actually makes your heart rate rise a little bit, makes you feel a little bit panicky, you can't sleep, that is a psychological operation. Okay, you have been in a person who has gone through that has been exposed to a psychological operation, or I'm going to call it, for my personal, a psychic attack. And this is the same thing, same thing. Okay, and so you're saying here in the relation to that question is you're saying, I'm so used to the finances of this reality, is there a transition out of? What is my take on this? The finances in this reality is something that we have all been using. I myself include myself in using that same principle. But again, as I've said to you, you have to make the transition inside of yourself first in looking what the finances as a currency or an energetic form holds. If you see that energy, see it as energy, then you remove the fear of lacking, that you will never have enough. Okay, because then you will be able to have the awareness that if you go there and you buy that product or you invest in that way, then you will be able to observe and see what that energy can do for you. So therefore, what I'm saying to you is, I am doing the same thing. I am applying on a personal level, on a personal basis. I put work in, and it is an exchange of energy to what comes to me as donation from the people that I work with, my clients, and they feel that they have given what they could give. Sometimes they can't pay and or donate. Then I say, okay, that doesn't matter. You can send me a book, or you can do this. You can exchange with me this and that, if you feel you want to. And sometimes they can't at all anything. And I am also okay with that, because then another client may come, and if I have a balance or an equilibrium that I'm working with, then in that way, another client might decide to say, listen, I can donate 12 dozen eggs to you, if that's okay with you, for what you've done for me. And I'm happy with that as well. And so that is why I'm saying in your mind, when you look at the actual currency itself, you have to make the transition here first, seeing that it is energy in transition at all times. It was very cleverly designed to have it essentially, like I said in the beginning, the person that you would buy the 10 sheep from was equal to that lump of gold, spoke the truth then. It is when there was a middleman involved in that process that the truth became embellished. Or actually have 15.5 sheep for 2 pieces of gold, but you can't see the other sheep, they're just around the corner, and that is called inflation. So that is a rudimentary way of explaining how financial energy operates as such. Okay, I hope this makes sense to you. Make the transition in your mind first. My take is how I've done it is what I've explained to you. That is what I do. That is how we operate. And if we need financial currency to work on electricity, to pay off the lights or the rent or whatever the case may be, there is always enough to cover that. Believe it or not, it's a state of consciousness, thoughts in my mind saying to myself every day, what I make today is enough to carry me forward for X days. Every day I say that to myself, and that is what it is. Okay, the material is very malleable. Materia is malleable with spirit manipulating it. Okay, you understand? I hope this makes sense. Okay. Materialism is and ever shall be blind to the spirit of knowledge. The first sense of thought is the first order of creation. Orders all universal energy is reflection of the cosmic science. Materialism is and ever shall be blind to the spirit of knowledge. In other words, materia can only operate in the system that it is in. Its consciousness towards what you know as spirit within you, it is unaware. It cannot be back engineered. Does that make sense? Okay. So you have also asked me the next question, and I'm coming towards the last part of the series, of the part 2 of the knowledge. You asked, I noticed you referenced some verses from the Bible. I still struggle to understand how the sorcery is so intertwined with the Bible. It's almost as if the Bible was watered down so much to hide the real truth. So I'm saying to you, yes, this is correct. The information in the Bible, the word, the Bible only holds reverence because it has a very strong religious background to it. But the Bible could have been the scrolls, the Nag Hammadi scrolls, or it could have been the Bhagavad Gita, or it could have been the Bible of Ngu, or it can be anything, whatever you wanted it to be. If it holds a belief, a religious belief to it, you will feel that it holds some reverence to you. The way that I observe the information and that I'm sharing with you is coming from within. I'm trying to explain to you that once you've started to tap in to connecting with Great Spirit within you, the information flows the way as it has been in every video that you have seen. I have notes of how I answer the questions because there is a lot of information to cover. But the essential depth of the information in itself is what governs everything. Spirit swings the bat. Spirit shapes the materia. Spirit creates. You allow the Spirit to create through you by speaking it into creation. Very important. The information has always been interfered with. This is why I feel that once I started with a series of knowledge, the knowledge itself, it's the first time that I've ever decided to actually really bring it all out in like one shot. That there is a threat that is taking place, and you can feel it when you listen to the work and you start to talk about it, how people react towards it, or how the Ministry of Magic is reacting to it. They really are worried that they are losing the power to bring in their dark entity that comes out of the void, which is called Leviathan. It is another story for another day. So you are asking, you're saying here, I really thought Atlantis was a myth. Okay, I struggled with what the crystallized tech was and how it worked. How long was this? Again, I want to say that there's no time related to that thing. And Atlantis is also just the beginning part of the consciousness as it started to become aware of its own creative power. Consider that as a civilization that existed a long time ago. I do want to say that Atlantis itself as a hub of creation originated when the planet and its continents were originally all part of the Pangea state, where all the continents were together. So do a little research in that, and you'll understand what I mean when I say that it was all Pangea in Pangea. And so the crystal technology is really the understanding of the knowledge within yourself when you look at a physical crystal and what it can do for you. And once you work on this crystal, you're able to expand your connective consciousness into the crystal, and then to make the crystal, or to have the crystal add to what you're wanting to bring into this reality itself. That is, people use crystals. I've got a lot of crystals here that all are relevant to what I require of it to do for me. And to be honest with you, I love crystals because they are, to me, like touching connection with Great Spirit in physical form, other than in human form and animal form, and plants and animals and insects. So, yeah, I would say, going back to what you're saying, sorcery has always been involved in trying to hide the knowledge. It's basically, if you know something really important and you want to share it, but you think, no, if I share it and more people know about it, then I can't be the king of that story. You know, that's the typical bully mentalism. Again, they are the ones that believe in materialism. They are the ones that give power to the materia by taking your creative power to making it the material. It's like looking at a building. It's quite interesting. It's funny, actually. It's like someone wanted to build a building in the middle of a city, and they've gone everywhere and gathered all the people from all over to get them to build this place. And everyone, if they didn't all work together from different walks of life, then that building would not exist. So it is the same process as having to look at the ones from the void and seeing that they are, to some sick extent, adding to putting pressure on you to want to find out more about what is inside of you. So see them that way. They hate to be seen as helpful. So they cannot make peace with that. They want to be known as the revered ones that are the devils, you know, that they can hunt you with a pitchfork and burn a village down with a lot of women in it in Salem, etc., etc., etc. There's always going to be a malevolent element somewhere. You can never just have more people in a group that are happy at the same time. So you're asking, do I think knowledge from that creation? Okay, why do I believe? Okay, do you think knowledge from that creation was saved till now or hidden from us? Knowledge has always been hidden. And when I say knowledge has been hidden, it means how often have you been able to go into yourself to tap into the knowledge? And so if you've not known that you could actually go in even deeper within yourself, that may have then made you understand that it was hidden all along. So it only became hidden because not a lot of people go into themselves to find the knowledge. Some look for outside things to tell them what is inside of them. And so inherently, I want to say that that is a fundamental flaw in how the civilization of humanity has existed for a long time. So I think people are perhaps lazy to go in. They might not know how to go into themselves. Once you are familiar with who you are, only then are you able to then become aware of what you are. And once you know what you are then able to feel what you know. And what you know becomes the next part of your journey in how to explore and start to work with it in yourself. And so you're asking me what level from 1 to 6 would you put on what you are sharing with us? Okay, I know you're asking me about the levels that Desmond Bernardo spoke about. So what I want to say is, let me explain this. Everything in this reality that is physical around you, that means your table, your room, the door, the window, the light, everything, is five sensory. It is based on the five senses of your physical vessel. It is five level understanding. So you can understand on every level what you see and engage with. Information that is shared with you, it touches you on a physical five-dimensional or five sensory level. Okay, that is five level understanding, which is important to understand because you must be able to understand how the vessel of the physical reality interacts with you. The sixth level, or the sixth sensory level, is your sixth sense. In other words, the moment you start to look at your five sensory reality around you, you look at the information that was given to you about the committee of the 300, for example, or you look at the information that's given to you from some people in books and so on. How you interact with it you can decide how you interact with it. Do you interact with it with a five sensory level, or do you interact with it with a six sensory level to looking at the entire picture for what it is? I don't place myself in any level of understanding. What I'm explaining and the work that it is that we are communicating here, the knowledge itself, is multidimensional. It means it doesn't fit in any level, and yet it fits in all levels. Okay? And how I speak about it and interpret it to you is using my six senses to explain the information in a metaphysical manner. That means when I explain to you that this glass is either half full or half empty, that is your perception. Your perception is what you are working with. When I talk about the glass of water, I speak about the entire the entire form of what it presents. Physical five sensory reality tells you it is a physical object. It is made up of particles that makes it look like a glass. It comes from sand. Sand was glass, is glass heated up. Water comes from the earth. It is like energy from Great Spirit, from Mother Nature. Metaphysical explanation suggests to you that the glass of water is also your mind and how much spiritual information you hold into you. Is there a lot of water in there? Means you have a lot of emotions inside of you, or do you understand it as fairly much balanced? Once you go into yourself, you close your eyes, you go into yourself and you tap in and say to yourself, I am within Great Spirit and Great Spirit is within me. You take a deep breath in and you feel the energy and you close your eyes and you will start getting little thoughts coming to you. Pay attention to that. You're already on your way. I hope this answers the questions in the second series of the knowledge. Please stay tuned for a third series that will come up because there's a lot of other questions that have come up and we will be discussing a few things a bit more deeply. Please feel free to please ask questions as you have been emailing me as well. Please also ask them on the channel. It is really good that there's a lot of questions that are coming out and I love answering them. And so thank you so much for that. And please subscribe to the Odyssey channel if you have not. And put your bell icon on if you want to see when the videos come on this channel posted. And yeah, thank you so much. And I'm sending you much love. Bye.